dark and difficult times lie ahead. Soon we must all face the choice between what is right and what is easy.
Hello, ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, innies, outies, and of course, in-betweeners. I want to thank Stuart George. I came across a video on his channel yesterday with regards to the College of Policing guidance on personal protective equipment. Now, this is something that I think we all should know in regards to being able to keep ourselves safe. We've seen many examples of the police dealing with members of the public and completely ignoring any social distancing rules or recommendations. We see hardly any of them wearing PPE, and I think that the police are more likely to spread any kind of virus or anything else for that matter than anybody else is. Simple reason being is these people are the ones that are called to go and deal with vulnerable people, elderly people. You know, you might have a neighbour that's not been heard of for a while or not been seen for a while. You call the police, they go round there, they make entry. It could be somebody in there with poor health already, and the police are dealing with people all day long without any PPE, without taking any precautions. But we all know what's going to happen. If somebody dies, you know, it will be their fault rather than the police for not obeying any of the instructions that they're given. So I want to go through this with you very quickly. It's only 3 pages, but we don't need to go through it all. But thanks again to Stuart George. I'm going to put a link to his channel in the description. This was sent out to police officers and staff on the 8th of April. Explanatory note to forgive the banging upstairs and laying a new floor. Explanatory note to accompany personal protective equipment. Please read in conjunction with this document the guide. Please read the operational guidance practical scenarios. This guidance was based on HMG, Her Majesty's Government advice confirmed by Public Health England to policing on 8th of April. The recommendation in all scenarios is officers have PPE readily available, and as a minimum that is a fluid resistant surgical mask and gloves. Operational scenarios. Staff working indoors with colleagues. We don't need to worry about that because we're not dealing with them whilst they're in the buildings. Double crewing. It is recommended that PPE, minimum of fluid resistant surgical mask and gloves, should be readily available for officers where it's necessary to deploy double crewed patrols or in personnel carriers. What that's saying, guys, is that the police are supposed to be wearing their PPE if they're sharing a vehicle, whether there's 2 in the vehicle or whether it's a a meat wagon full. Do you know what I mean? On its way to the abattoir. Anyway, if you see police not wearing masks, or if police are approaching you from a vehicle and there's two or more of them, remember you need to be the one to make sure that distance is kept. Okay, that 2 metre, 6 foot distance between you and them. All right. General patrol. Forces should triage calls for suspected or confirmed COVID cases and give prior warning, re PPE requirements. This is currently happening in most forces. Officers and staff should expect that they may need to don PPE quickly in some situations and take reasonable precautions to enable this. So this should be readily available, for example, on the officer's person rather than the back of the car. I would suggest that we make sure that they're doing that. If the police approach you, I think, and they're not wearing mask or gloves, I think we should ask them where their gloves and mask are. If it's not on their person, then they are going against the operational guidance. Entering premises. On entering premises where there is no prior information or suggestion that those present are suspected or confirmed as having COVID, officers should have PPE readily available, capable of being donned quickly prior to or upon entering the NDM. To risk assess each incident, officers should be aware that there is a possibility that infected occupants do not know that they're infected. In the circumstances where close contact with the public is likely and social distancing is not available and possible risk of infection exists, recommended that officer and staff wear the masks and gloves. Furthermore, that they conduct a risk assessment on use of goggles and an apron. So there is no reason for the police to stand within 2 meters of you unless they are going to detain you or arrest you, at which case they should be putting on their masks and gloves based on the operational guidance. In the circumstances where close contact with the public is likely and social distancing not available and symptomatic, it is recommended that officers and staff wear a fluid-resistant surgical mask, gloves, disposable aprons, goggles. Furthermore, that they conduct a risk assessment on the use of fluid repellent coverall or oversuit. So we are not seeing any of this. In fact, I think I've only seen one video where 2 police constables arrived to speak to somebody, and I will be sharing that video with you because it was sent to me directly, where they were wearing masks. But I've not seen any others, which is very worrying. So, operational guidance, practical scenarios. Now, this is inside duties, which we don't need to worry about. Okay, we don't need to worry about inside duties, providing we concern ourselves with external public-facing duties. So, if contact with the public is likely, but social distancing measures are available, and you can ensure that you are 2 meters away, then you don't need a mask, you don't need gloves, you don't need an apron, you don't need goggles, and you don't need a fluid repellent coverall. If, however, close contact with, if close contact with the public is likely and social distancing is not available and the possible risk of infection exists, I would assume this is just speaking to somebody. I would assume this is in a scenario where you're speaking to somebody, you've pulled them over in their vehicle and you're speaking to them. Okay, you've stopped in the street and you're asking somebody, but you can't, for whatever reason, you're unable to be 2 meters away. But again, this isn't the kind of situation where you're going to be arrested or detained, because that would require much more, much closer contact. Okay, in fact, it's going to require hands-on contact. But again, 2 meters unless closer contact is essential, at which point they need to be wearing a fluid-resistant surgical mask and disposable gloves. Aprons, goggles, they can risk assess, and the overall suits, fluid repellent, they don't need. Now, if close contact with the public is likely and social distancing is not available and symptomatic, if they really are unable to remain 2 meters away because they've got to jump on somebody or whatever it might be, then they're supposed to wear fluid resistant surgical masks, disposable gloves, potentially disposable aprons and goggles. I mean, this could really be in a situation in custody suite, for example. Okay, if they've got a prisoner in there that is being, or a suspect that is being an issue to deal with, then they should really be wearing all of this stuff for their protection. But the thing is, it is not just for their protection. There is nothing in this operational guidance that suggests anything about making sure the public are safe. This is all about making sure they're safe. Nothing in there at all that mentions, in order, for example, quote, in order to keep the public safe. This is all about them. But again, we're not seeing any of this implemented by anyone, barring a few. This last page talks about social distancing where possible provides the most effective first line of protection. Think practically, how can I maintain social distancing? Use the national decision module when likely to have close contact with a member of the public. What are your alternatives to close contact? Disinfect the inside of your police vehicle, cleaning the stations, office staff, avoid entering someone's non-police premises unless it's absolutely essential, remove potentially contaminated clothing, and how to dispose of. But how many of you have actually seen the police wearing these masks or disposable gloves? They're getting out of their vehicles, coming over to you. They're sitting in their vehicles, chatting away to each other, no doubt, having a cough, maybe one of them sneezes, and they're sitting in there. And then they're both going off then back to the station, and they're going to mingle with other police constables who are then going to go out on their duty, and they're going to go and mix with vulnerable people in the community And if somebody is infected that is not showing symptoms, they're just going to pass that on to people. We have to make sure, we have to police the police in this, because they're not doing it themselves. We have to make sure the police are doing this. If the police are coming too close to you, tell them to step back. If they won't step back, then you take steps back, okay? But keep your arm out at a distance and tell them to stop coming towards you, to keep the distance, okay? You are within your rights under common law to use reasonable force to protect yourself from harm. How often are we being told that COVID-19 is incredibly dangerous? Common law gives us the right to protect ourselves. If the police are going to continually fail to adhere to their own operational guidance and to keep the public safe, we have to do that for them. Now, I'm not suggesting that people should go out and do anything to the police, because I don't agree with the violence. But we have a right to use reasonable force to protect ourselves and to protect others for that matter. And when the police have this guidance but are not following it, at a time when they're ordering us to follow guidance, then we need to hold them to account. I'm going to leave a link to this document in the description. Whether this has been some help to you or not, I don't know. I hope it has. I hope it's maybe taught you something that you didn't know previously. But remember, the police are paid members of the public. They are not above the law. They are not above the guidance. They have to adhere to it as well. And we are within our rights to use reasonable force under common law to make sure that we're not infected by somebody who potentially could be infected. And with the police dealing with so many people per day, and purposely stopping people because they're getting bored, I assume, I don't know, but we have to protect ourselves and other people. So don't forget to film every interaction. If you see the police without their masks on, film them, take a picture of them, send it to me. Let's shame them, get their numbers, get their collar numbers. We'll name and shame them. Okay, we'll get them up on the channel, and then if anybody else sees them, and they can know that potentially they're going to be infected because they're not using their PPE and trying to remain safe. Anyway, that is it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I love each and every one of you. Enjoy the rest of your Easter weekend if you can. I know it's difficult, I know it's hard, but just remember, there is nothing stopping you from going out. There is nothing stopping you from taking your exercise once, twice, thrice a day. There was nothing stopping you from going to the shops to get whatever you want. Just at least keep to the social distancing, because that is really the only thing that they can do you for. They can't do you for being out. They can't do you for going to the shop or going for a walk or going for a run. Wherever it is you're going, they can't do you for it. The only thing that they can do you for is for breaking the social distancing, in the fact that you are in a group of more than 2 people. Good night, all. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you like the content and you'd like to help support the channel, you can do so. In the description of every video there are some links to ways that you're able to help support the channel so I can continue putting out content. If you're unable to help us in that way, hit that subscribe button up the top there. If you haven't already, become a subscriber. That is support enough. Share the videos, comment, like, it all helps. If you're looking for something else to watch, up top there is my latest video. Down the bottom there is a video that YouTube recommends for you.